I'm interested in what you think about this statement that was recently signed by 50 top generals and admirals saying that we can't rely on military power alone, calling on the candidates to all address ways to elevate and strengthen these non-military expressions and tools of global engagement. Did it surprise you to see something coming from those military leaders like that? That's
No.
a remarkable thing.
Well, in one sense, maybe it is, but I'll tell you why I wasn't surprised. The biggest thinkers that I have met overall in my 12 years in the Senate have come out of the military.
Huh.
Why is that? It's actually, when you think about it, it's a pretty logical reaction. Because the military is the one area in our government that's asked to do it all. The burdens that we put on the military are astounding. Not only do we ask them to fight and die, and their families to sacrifice, and by the way, that's only about 1% of the American public. We ask them to be surrogate mayors and surrogate ambassadors, engineers, diplomats, and so we load it all on the military, everything. And so when you get these great thinkers, because they're the ones who have to carry it out, they have the burden. It doesn't surprise me that 50 generals and admirals would say, "Wait a minute, because you're ruining, you're breaking our military because of this. If you don't change the equations here."
Are we leaning on them so much because our civilian agencies, the State Department, of which you might be the boss, if you're asked, doesn't have the tools?
The State Department does not have the tools. Interesting speech that Secretary of Defense Gates gave out of Kansas State 3 months ago. Much of his speech was about how underfunded the State Department is, how underfunded our diplomatic efforts are. He said there are more members of the military, the American military, on a carrier battle group than all of the career professionals, foreign policy professionals in the State Department, in the world. And he said, one of the things we've got to do better, and this is part of what we're talking about and what I bring out in the book, is that before it gets to the point of military exchange, before we send soldiers in, we've got to do some front-end work on that that would stop some of that, and maybe an awful lot of it. But if you don't have the resources, the programs and the people and the assistance and the budgets, then what's going to happen?
Because you don't have the people who speak the language, know the culture, know the people, living in the cities, living in the countries, working in the embassies, working in the consulates. Who's making the contact? Who's arguing the case? Who's doing those humanitarian or those other reconstruction projects? Nobody.
That's exactly right. Now we're on a crash program, and all these young people here who are interested in foreign policy, they have tremendous opportunity ahead of them. Because the world is going to need this group of people like never before.